So this is a quick and dirty concept for a flower frog that I made. Let's make an actual good one for later. So this is something used by my grandmother a lot. Ever since I was little, I called her Grammy Pat. So I would like to dedicate this video to my Grammy Pat. We're going to create a new part, and let's start on the sketcher. Nope, you know what? Let's go to the part workbench instead. I'm trying to think about the best order to do things because I'm kind of doing this on the fly. Let's grab a spiral here, and let's go with something like 20 rotations, a growth of, let's go with 2 millimeters per revolution, and a starting radius of 1 is all right. So we're going to create that. There's a nice spiral. I'm going to do an extrude, 10 millimeters. Actually, we can be too thin, but we can't be too thick. So let's make that a 50 millimeter extrusion, and of course we want this shape. And apparently that's not going to work, so we're going to highlight our spiral, extrude, along 50, okay. There we go. So next, let's make it a little bit more fancy by giving this a degree of ovality, right? We'll make this oval. So we're going to go to the draft workbench now, and I'm going to grab, how about scale? Oh, but of course I must highlight my part, and then we'll apply a scale. I'm going to enter my point 0, 0, 0, enter point, and then my Y factor, let's go with 1 point, let's say 25. There you go. I typed it in wrong, but you can start to see the oval pattern that we're getting. And there are our graphics worked out there. So there we have that scale. Maybe I'm being a little bit picky here, but I just want to see what 1.5 looks like. That's nice. I think that's a nice ratio. I'm going to go with that, right? So this will be kind of a cool little flower frog that we're making, I think. And now, how about I shift gears to my sketcher. Let's create a sketch on the right plane here, the YZ plane. And let's go with here to here. We can give this a nice dimension. How about something like 130? Actually seems to make a lot of sense. Shift R will give this a radius. In fact, let me bring in my keyboard monitor in case you need to see any of my hotkeys. So here it is down here if you need it. Shift R, let's go with 100 maybe? A little bigger. Hey. There we go, 175, that's better. And then I'm just going to have this thing float kind of in the middle. I'll give this a vertical dimension. 10 millimeters is great, right? So we're going to close that. I'm going to highlight my arc body and my arc end point. I have to hold the control doing this, of course. And let's go with sketcher. And we want, of course, normal to edge. So now we're, I better turn on my wireframe so I can see what's going on, but we're normal to our arc edge for a sketch, and I just have to make an arc that is going to be wider than the part that I have, right? My oval spiral part. So we're going to add in a coincident relation here. We'll add in a horizontal relation here. I want to add in a coincident to my plane here. We'll go with a Shift R and something like 150, and a horizontal relation. Let's go with 125, right? Now we can close that. So I think we have everything we need. Let's go to the part workbench now, and let's go with a sweep. And of course I want my sketch 001 to be my profile. I'm going to select my path in the graphics display over here. We're going to say done, okay, and I've just swept a NURB surface across this, and we're going to grab our view, and we can say as is, right? So here we've got a NURB surface, and you know what? I'm going to update this sketch to be something more like even bigger, right? Let's go 250, and I want to go with 250 by 250. That would actually work. I say let's go for it. So we're going to close that. That's a little bit better for the artistic effect that I'm going for. Perfect. Next, let's offset this surface to give it a thickness. Right, this is a lot like the thicken command in SolidWorks or something else. We're going to make sure that we have the fill offset box checked. 1 millimeter is fine. 5 millimeters doesn't hurt either. It just makes it a little bit more visible. And now I can select here and here, and we're going to do an intersect so that we only keep the common areas between our spiral surface and this NURB surface that we've made. Right, so we're going to grab intersect, and this might take a little bit of computation, so that was pretty quick actually. I figured that was going to be a lot more computing, but as you can see, we sort of cut out our spiral now to be conforming to the NURB surface that we've made, and that will be a very nice control moving forward. Alright, so I'm just going to head on over to part design real quick, and I just want to visualize where my planes are, right? So we're a little bit below here. And again, I just use that to show where my planes are. Let's grab, again, our sketcher, and I want to create a sketch on the top plane here. We're going to grab, you know what? How about a revolve? That'll actually be a little bit better. That I can do what I was going to do in 2 steps in 1 step if I do this in a revolve. So here's my sketch 002. I can delete that because I just changed my mind. Let's go with our right plane. Brilliant. And you can see our starting point right there. So we're going to grab the edge import, and that will be perfect. Next, I'm going to grab, actually let's go with polyline, and maybe I'm just going to sketch, you know, it'd be better if I was in a wireframe here. I'm going to make just a nice little spike here to here. Let's go with a vertical. Let's go with 1 millimeter down. That will just give us enough penetration into our surface here. Let's give this an angle of something like 30 degrees is fine. That's almost going to be like a knife point, I think. Let's go with the vertical, something like 20 millimeters, right? This will be pretty tall. And then I want to grab this point and establish a vertical relation with our origin, you know, just typical sketch defining stuff. Let's go with a horizontal, and let's make these, I was actually thinking 0.5 millimeter, and that should be fine. So just by virtue of what I'm going to be doing here, we're going to have a little bit more dense points in the center, but I don't think it'll be a big issue. So we're going to close that. Let's go back to the part workbench now, and we're going to do a revolve. Of course, we have our sketch, and we want to do this around the z-axis, and our z is pre-selected, so I should be able to just say OK. Change our draw style back, and we have a nice spike, which is exactly what I'm looking for. Alright, next. We've kind of consumed our surface here, so I'm going to hide it with the spacebar. And let's grab this sketch, which should be under common. There it is, yep, sketch 001. With that highlighted, let's grab a sweep. And we want sketch 001 as our profile. We want our path from the graphics display here, right? We're just remaking what we've already made. Done. Okay, right? So we've remade that. Looks good. Our spike should be coming out of the bottom of that surface, and it is, so we have plenty of room there. Next, let's grab the top plane, So we're going to say, oh, sketcher, create a sketch, top plane, and I am going to call this art. And anything art, I'm not going to worry about fully constraining, right? So we're going to say that this is totally art here. Good, that works. I'm going to grab here, and I'm going to grab this line of symmetry and apply a non-constrained symmetric feature to the sketch, right? So we've got a leaf. Next, and this is the equivalent of a flip side to cut command in other CAD platforms, which we don't actually have. But what the platforms do is essentially this when you say flip side to cut. So I don't think that this is a completely illegitimate practice. Let's go here to here to here, symmetric, and it looks like we're overdefined by constraint 19. So we're going to delete that. Good, right? So now we're kind of centered, but this absolutely needs to be closed, so I'm glad I checked that. Oh, and that needs to be closed too. And we're over constrained. That's kind of odd. So we're just going to get rid of this horizontal here, and this horizontal, and this vertical. Right? Okay, that did it. Oh no, but we still have this thing. I'm glad I'm checking this stuff. All right. Maybe I'll get rid of this vertical and choose a symmetric, and that ought to get us good. Right, there we go. That's what I was intending all along. So you can dimension this further. I think this is just going to be kind of a one and done without design intent for me. So we're going to go to the part workbench, and we're going to do an extrude off of our highlighted sketch, and I'm just going to make sure that we go all the way through, so 100 symmetric millimeters. We're going to say OK. Now changing the draw style back. Right, there we have that. We want to choose this as our main body, and the solid that we just created as a tool. We'll do a Boolean subtraction, and we've kind of cut out a decorative leaf shape that I quite like. So we're almost there with our flower frog. Next thing, I want to, and this spiral is a reference surface, of course, that will not be part of our final assembly or part, but I want to make sure that this has a thickness as well. So we're going to do another offset. Let's go with something like, oh, maybe 10 millimeters thick. I don't know what a standard flower frog size is, but we want to make sure that we fill our offset. And there we have kind of a nice leaf for our flower frog. We're going to say OK to that. And now the fun part begins. Let's make a pattern of spikes to put our flowers in. What I'm going to do first is, of course, highlight my spike, then highlight my path. Let's go to the draft workbench and grab a pattern on path. And so there we have a path array. That seems a little bit screwy wampus, right? I'm just going to Control Z that and try one different method. We're going to highlight this. Then highlight this. Huh. That is really strange. And if I align it with true, they should be sideways. So, yeah, that's not what I want either. So we're going to make sure that's false. I'm going to give this a quantity of 100 and just see how we're doing with that. Yeah, we'll need more than 100, that's for sure. But it seems like they're just kind of evenly dispersed above this. Let's go with 500. So there's our path of 500. That's looking a bit more flower frog-ish. I'm going to try to cheat here. Let's double click and select transform. Looks like we can't transform our array. So let me transform my offset. And I'm just going to move that up. That's major cheating, but it works. So we're going to say OK to that. And yeah, I think that is a reasonable flower frog. So we'll just move that there and there and there. I've totally cheated on that, I admit it, but I think that works. I think lastly, let's add in just a few more features that I think would be handy. First, something that will help to stand this up. So let's grab on the part workbench here, no, Sketcher actually, we want the YZ plane, which it looks like I need to unhighlight everything in my tree to get that. On the YZ plane, we'll create a sketch. And let's go with a polyline here. Let's go with kind of a nice round base here. There we go. And we'll come up here, right? And then I want to wireframe this so I can actually see inside of my solid. Or maybe I should get normal to my plane. That'll help. That's about right. So we'll go from here to here. We'll grab a perpendicular constraint. Boom, right there. And lastly, I think I've messed up down here, right? What I want to do, let's grab a rim point arc, as I think that that's easier to, actually no, I want my center of my arc to be here. That's better, right? That's what we want for a nice round base. And I kind of like that angle there. That's pretty cool. So maybe I'll try to emphasize that as much as I can. And oh, you know what? I really can't. So that's cool, but I'm going to go with parallel for now. Maybe we can do a draft. From here, again, I don't have much of my sketch constrained for the leaf, so maybe it's a bit superfluous if I try to constrain these other aspects of my sketch, but we'll go with a tangent relation there. That's better. We'll go with a radius of something like 9 millimeters. That's looking pretty good. I guess I won't fully constrain it for the sake of time. However, I do want to make a secondary sketch, and I think it's on this plane. Nope. Let's get rid of that. I'll make another sketch. Should be on this plane then. And we'll do an edge import here. This is just a quick reference for my axis of revolution. So we're going to close that. And now part, revolve. We've got our sketch pre-selected. We're going to select a reference, and it will be this. We're going to say OK. And I don't think that worked. Change my draw style to be sure, but yeah, that's no good. So let's get rid of that revolve. We're going to choose our revolve. We're going to select a reference. And I want to choose, maybe I can choose it for my tree, sketch 5. Well, that's kind of cool, but it didn't do what I wanted it to. Alright, maybe that'll work. We want sketch 4. That's it. Next, we'll head on back to the draft workbench. The longer I use FreeCAD, the more helpful and overall great the draft workbench is. So I'll select my feature here, revolve 001, and we're going to make an array. We want to make sure that it's not ortho, but a polar array. We want the axis to be, I believe, on the Z plane here. So Z is already pre-selected. Our number polar, I'm going to go with 3. It's the anti-wobble number. And there we have our flower frog. So I'm going to save that. And here we have a fillet. Maybe I can add it in. Sometimes FreeCAD does not like sharp edges like that for fillets, so I kind of expect this to fail. It did not, because FreeCAD is awesome. Let's try that again. And it did fail on that one, right? So when you ever have converging fillets on a sharp edge like that, you're going to fail. I think the remedy to that is, let's get rid of this fillet momentarily. We're going to add a fillet. I actually need to pre-select it. We're going to add a fillet in here. And now I should be able, well, I have a sharp edge up here too. All right, so now I should be able to fillet. And maybe actually one edge ought to do it, right? And of course we failed again. I'm going to try this one more time with a fillet that this time I'm going to make something like 0.75. Nope. I'm just going to leave it be. Alright. So that's our leaf. That's our flower frog. I hope this video was helpful. If it was, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Oh, and by the way, I just changed my path array variable to be 1,000, and that looks like a much better, more uniform flower frog. So make that 1,000 and enjoy.